To millions, Chuck Norris stands as the living definition of invincible strength. His name synonymous with unyielding resolve, his fists forever immortalized in cinematic legend. From the electric clash with Bruce Lee in The Way of the Dragon to 8 seasons enforcing justice as Walker, Texas Ranger, his on-screen presence has thrilled audiences across generations. Yet behind that unbreakable facade lies a far more fragile story. A boy broken by violence and loss. A man haunted by tragedies that no box office success could ever erase. Carlos Ray Norris was born in 1940 in the dusty plains of Ryan, Oklahoma, into a home already trembling with fear. His father, Ray Norris, returned from World War II missing in action, lucky to come back alive but forever wounded in spirit. The hero's welcome he received soon dissolved into nightly outbursts fueled by memories he could not silence. Alcohol became Ray's refuge, a brutal mask hiding nightmares beneath a storm of anger. Every creak of the floorboards might presage a violent explosion, and young Chuck learned to tread as though the ground itself could betray him. His mother, Wilma, stood alone as the family's last bastion of hope. With 3 growing boys and nothing but courage in her pocket, she shielded them from hunger by hiding the few dollars she earned. But each time she managed even a moment of stability, Ray's drunken rage yanked it away. There were nights when he piled his children into the car, weaving dangerously through country roads, and no one dared speak except in desperate, terrified whispers. For Chuck, home was not a place of safety. It was a battlefield where each day was won by the skin of his teeth. At 14, Chuck's fear matured into fierce protectiveness. One night, as his father raged at his mother, Chuck, hammer in trembling hand, stepped between them. He vowed then that he would never become the man whose fury he so feared. That moment carved itself into his soul, forging a promise. No matter how fearsome life became, he would stand his ground and defend the ones he loved. Wilma's final act of courage came in 1956 when she gathered her boys and fled to California, leaving a husband consumed by demons behind. That journey west was more than an escape. It was a rebirth. In a cramped apartment far from Oklahoma's fields, Chuck discovered an inner voice urging him toward something greater than survival. He dragged himself to Saturday afternoon matinees, cowboy pictures that flickered across the silver screen, yearning to be as honorable and strong as those heroes, even when he could afford only the cheapest seat. When he turned 18, Chuck enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and found himself stationed at Osan Air Base in South Korea. There, amidst the gray barracks and parade drills, he encountered martial arts for the first time. The timid farm boy who had once scurried through school halls like a shadow now faced taekwondo and judo masters whose fluid power both intimidated and beckoned to him. His first attempts were awkward. Fists hung limp, stances wobbled. But every fall taught him more than any classroom ever could. A spark ignited, whispering that discipline could dismantle weakness and rebuild it into steel. Martial arts gave Chuck an identity he never had before. Day after day he practiced until the mats bore the imprint of his sweat and determination. By the time his service ended in 1962, he carried home not just a discharge paper, but an obsession that would define his life. Back in California, he worked as a military police officer by day and started his first karate school by night. The storefront was humble, sometimes deserted, but he swept those mats with the same ferocity he brought to combat. Empty seats did not deter him. Every quiet moment fueled his conviction that passion demanded patience. He began entering tournaments in the mid-60s, only to face harsh defeats that bruised his body and battered his spirit. Each loss echoed the helplessness he had known as a child. But Chuck refused to quit. He drilled kicks until his hips screamed, sharpened strikes until calluses formed on his knuckles, and returned to the ring again and again. In 1967, at age 27, he finally captured his first pro championship, a moment that proved defeat was not final unless you surrendered. Over the next 6 years he would reign as middleweight karate champion, transforming every setback into a stepping stone. By the early 1970s, Hollywood's attention turned to this quiet powerhouse. His breakout came in 1972 when he accepted the role in The Way of the Dragon opposite Bruce Lee. In that arena they fought not only each other, but the fear that history might remember Chuck only as the man Lee defeated. Yet audiences fixated on his intensity, and the silver screen box office world could not ignore the arrival of a new star. Still, stardom did not come overnight. Films stumbled until 1978's Good Guys, where Black finally showcased the clean-cut, disciplined hero America craved. From there, his career accelerated with relentless momentum. The Octagon Lone Wolf McQuade missing in action, Code of Silence, The Delta Force. Each role reinforced his rugged patriotism and unyielding justice. Yet with every uniform worn on camera, memories of his younger brother Welland's sacrifice in Vietnam surged back. In 1970, Welland died at 21 after saving comrades on patrol, an act of courage that left Chuck with a void no ticket stub could fill. "His death left a hole in my heart that will never heal," Chuck confessed, and that grief lent a haunting gravity to every heroic portrayal. In 1993 he premiered Walker, Texas Ranger, embodying Cordell Walker for 8 seasons. The series beamed into over 100 countries, making Chuck a global icon. Children saw an invincible protector. Adults saw a calm moral compass. Even the jokes and parodies only magnified his influence. But while the world cheered, Chuck continued to carry invisible scars, echoes of all he had endured. His personal life mirrored the turbulence of his youth. Married to high school sweetheart Diane in 1958, they shared 30 years, welcomed sons Mike and Eric, and built a family. Yet the demands of stardom, endless travel, and unspoken burdens drove a wedge between them. Their divorce in 1988 was another shattering loss, this time not in war but in the silent collapse of love. And just as he grappled with that grief, a letter arrived from Dina, a daughter he had never known from a brief wartime relationship. At 48, Chuck was forced to confront the weight of absence and the ache of years he could never reclaim. Though he embraced Dina with humility and love, the regret of lost time etched another scar. Grief struck again through friendship when Lee Atwater, brilliant political strategist and Chuck's confidant, was felled by an inoperable brain tumor in 1990 and died the next year at 40. Watching an invincible colleague reduced to whispers under a hospital gown confronted Chuck with mortality's cruel impartiality. "If it could happen to Lee, it could happen to any of us." Chuck vowed to honor his friend's memory by cherishing every breath given. In 1998, at 58, Chuck found love anew with model-turned-wife Gina O'Kelly. They welcomed twins Dakota and Dan in 2001, gifting him the family life he had yearned for. But in 2013, tragedy struck again when a routine MRI left Gina suffering from a rare, debilitating illness. Her body trembled, her voice faltered, and days blurred into hospital corridors where Chuck watched the woman he adored slip away. He poured every ounce of himself into her care, abandoning films and fame to stand vigil at her bedside. No action sequence could compare to this fight, no accolade measured the depth of his devotion. "She's dying right in front of me," he confessed, and in those silent nights he discovered love's truest form, unwavering presence in another's darkest hour. Today at 85, Chuck and Gina reside on a sprawling Texas ranch surrounded by still lakes and open skies, an oasis of borrowed peace. They raise horses and bottle pure spring water, building a business that reflects both their legacy and their resilience. Their twins are grown, shaped by a childhood of love and suffering. And Chuck's fortune, estimated at $70 million, speaks to decades of success, yet fails to measure the cost of unhealed wounds. Yet through every scar and loss, Chuck Norris has forged an enduring truth. True invincibility isn't the absence of pain, but the courage to rise again when life shatters you. He continues to champion KickStart Kids, the program he founded in 1990 to steer at-risk children toward discipline and hope. The legend who once defeated villains on screen now fights quieter battles, ensuring that no young soul ever feels as powerless as he once did. In his final chapter, Chuck lives not as an untouchable myth, but as a testament to human fragility, and to love's unparalleled power to heal. He stands as he always has, unbowed, and yet more human than ever before. If Chuck's journey moved you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories of resilience and hope.